Namo Amida Buddha. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. It's just so inspired from this blog that I found. So I'm going to read a little bit from it, and then I'll post a link to it in the description below. And the blog is called The Call of Boundless Compassion. And this is a quote, I believe, from Shinran. Extremely evil people should just say the Buddha's name, who has already grasped and embraced me. Though blind passions have obscured my eyes and I cannot see, great compassion is untiringly and constantly illumines me. And so I'll read a little more. Suffering beings like ourselves do not know why we are born here, in a perishing environment firmly attached to greed, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and doubt. Living perhaps for only a short period of 100 years and then blindly leaving this world in agony for another unknown existence of continued pain and suffering. How painfully foolish and blind we are, not making use of this precious human birth, which has brought us the right conditions to free ourselves forever from samsara, the vicious cycle of birth and death. So, that's one of the hardest parts of the Shin Buddhist path, is the recognition of how foolish we are. And the recognition that, as Shinran put it, that we're bamboos, stumbling, bumbling spiritual idiots. And that all of our own efforts are going to fail. And so lately I've been reflecting on some of the fundamental ideas of Buddhism, and this second quote really highlights that for me. Suffering beings like ourselves do not know why we are born here. So to really take a moment and just honestly say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the blankety blank is going on. I don't know how I got here, and I don't know where I'm going. We have, the Buddha Dharma gives us some answers. We're in this human birth because we did some very high merit, good actions that brought us here. And we're so obscured by ignorance, we don't remember any of that, and we don't even recognize how short and fleeting our time here is, and how what a precious opportunity it is. And we don't recognize that unless we make really good use of that opportunity, we're going to leave here and go somewhere really painful. And so reflecting on that helps me to recognize, wow, I don't know where I came from. I don't recognize the preciousness of where I am now, and I have no clue where I'm going. That helps me get a little humble and a little, and to recognize my own foolishness. And from there, then there's some openness to the reliance on the other power path that Shinran so eloquently has laid forth for us. And it reminds me of one of my favorite spiritual quotes, and I didn't know why, and now I know why. And this is actually from an Indian teacher. But I really feel like it really just captures the whole, not the whole, but the foundation of the Shin path. This teacher said, you need to admit your inability, that you require the help of a higher power to assist you. And that's obviously, Shin Buddhism has a few more specific things to say about what it means to admit our inability, the nature of that higher power, how to connect to it, how to And I feel like that's really the essence of the whole path, admitting our inability, that we require a higher power. But the thing is, and this is the genius of Shinran, is we can't admit our inability. All we can really do is very foolish, evil, meaning clouded in evil beings. All we can do is reflect on the teachings. And because if I could just admit my inability, I've done that. But then ego comes back in, and I think, oh, I can handle this, or so we're such bamboos, such spiritual idiots that, or I am, and that I can't even admit. If I could just fully admit that I was such an idiot, then I would just turn and embrace and be embraced by Amida. But I can't even do that. But what I can do is I can reflect on the teachings, and from that reflection, come to that moment. I experience what I would call unsettled Shinjin. There are moments where I feel embraced, but it kind of comes and goes, and then doubts return. So that's where I am currently in this process, and so what I know to do is just keep reflecting on the teachings, and in that, some grace. And one of the key teachings being that I can't. In 12-step they say, I can't, God can, I think I'll let him. And here in Jodo Shinsu, it's more like, I can't, Amida Buddha can. I'll reflect on these teachings until that moment happens, that moment of entrusting happens, because that's not something I can do. Thank you so much for dropping by. Namo Amida Buddha. I wish you a day of deep reflecting and of being embraced by Amida Buddha.